This man is sick. He has multiple affairs. He is an addict.
There are love stories the world turns into legends. Stories so beautiful, so polished, so seemingly blessed by heaven itself that people begin to believe they are untouchable. Tina and Teddy Campbell were one of those stories. To the world, they weren't just husband and wife. They were proof that love, faith, and devotion could survive anything. They stood as gospel music royalty, the kind of couple people pointed to when they wanted to believe marriage could still be sacred. On stage, their chemistry looked effortless. In interviews, their bond felt unshakable. In church circles, they were seen as an example of what divine love was supposed to look like. But sometimes the most beautiful houses hide the deepest cracks in the foundation. And behind the applause, behind the prayers, behind the music and ministry, something dark was growing in silence. This wasn't just about cheating. This was about a double life. A betrayal so deep it didn't just break a marriage, it shattered a woman's entire reality. Because while Tina was singing songs about faith, loyalty, and love, Teddy was building a secret world behind her back. A world made of lies, deception, and multiple affairs that stretched across years. This wasn't one mistake. This wasn't one weak moment. This was a carefully constructed life of dishonesty. And the most terrifying part? He did it while looking her in the eyes every single day. Imagine sharing your bed with someone who has already become a stranger. Imagine praying beside the very person who is secretly destroying you. That was Tina's reality. Long before the truth exploded, she felt it. It started as a whisper. A cold feeling in her spirit. A strange silence in the house. Late-night absences that didn't feel right. Phone calls that ended too quickly. The way he guarded his phone like it held the keys to another universe. She couldn't explain it, but she could feel it. Something was wrong. Women know when the energy shifts. And Tina Campbell, a woman known for both strength and spiritual discernment, felt the ground beneath her marriage begin to move. She wanted to ignore it. She wanted to believe she was overthinking. Because how do you accuse the man who leads you in prayer every night? How do you question the father of your children? How do you confront a shadow when you have no proof? That's the cruelest part of betrayal. Sometimes your soul knows long before your eyes do. And that intuition becomes its own kind of prison. Every time she looked at Teddy, she saw two people. The husband she loved, and the stranger her spirit no longer trusted. She would lie awake at night while he slept peacefully beside her, asking herself the same question over and over again. Am I crazy? Am I imagining this? Or is the man I love living a life I know nothing about? But Teddy had mastered the art of deception. He knew how to smile at the right moment, how to deny with confidence, how to make suspicion feel like paranoia. Every time she tried to bring up her fears, she was met with charm, denial, or a calmness so practiced it made her question her own mind. That kind of manipulation is its own violence. Because now the betrayal isn't just emotional, it becomes psychological. You stop trusting your instincts. You stop trusting your own reality. And slowly, the person being betrayed starts apologizing for noticing the truth. While Tina was pouring herself into family, faith, and music, Teddy was living a completely different life. Not one affair. Multiple. Not one betrayal. Years of betrayal. He wasn't hiding a secret. He was hiding an entire lifestyle. Different women. Different cities. Different lies for different days. He kissed Tina goodbye in the morning, called her his queen, and then stepped into a world that had nothing to do with the vows he made. The scale of it was devastating. This wasn't reckless behavior. It was organized, calculated, systematic. And because he was a public figure, because they were seen as gospel royalty, the deception carried an even darker weight. He wasn't just betraying his wife. He was betraying the very image they had built together. The power couple. The ministry. The trust of everyone who believed in them. Still, Tina had no proof. Only pain. Only that gut feeling that refused to leave. She was living in emotional quicksand, sinking deeper while trying to convince herself everything was fine. And then someone close to her decided enough was enough. A loyal friend. Someone who had watched Tina slowly lose herself. Someone who saw the exhaustion behind her smile. Someone who knew love was blinding her to what was happening. That friend made a choice that would change everything. For 6 long months, she investigated. Quietly, carefully, patiently. She became a shadow. She watched patterns, schedules, excuses. She noticed the sudden disappearances, the strange inconsistencies, the way Teddy protected his phone like it was a loaded weapon. She followed the trail because she knew Tina deserved the truth, even if the truth would destroy her. This wasn't gossip. This was an act of loyalty. Because sometimes love means being the person willing to break someone's heart to save their life. And what she found was worse than anyone imagined. Names, places, patterns, proof. The affairs weren't isolated incidents. They were repeated choices, a lifestyle, an entire second reality running parallel to his marriage. It wasn't just physical betrayal. It was emotional theft, financial betrayal, time stolen, energy invested elsewhere, resources spent on women Tina had never even heard of. Every new piece of evidence was another nail in the coffin of the marriage people thought was untouchable. The friend sat with that information, knowing once she revealed it, there would be no going back. No repairing innocence, no unseeing the truth, only devastation. The day of the revelation changed everything. The house felt different, heavy, like the walls already knew. There was no soft way to say it, no gentle introduction for a catastrophe. She sat Tina down, and then she told her, piece by piece, fact by fact, until denial had nowhere left to hide. When the evidence was laid out, the multiple women, the years of deception, the undeniable proof, time stopped. The room went cold. Tina's world collapsed in real time. This wasn't heartbreak. This was annihilation. Because betrayal at that level doesn't just hurt your feelings. It attacks your identity. Who am I if the life I believed in was a lie? What was real? Which memories were true? Which I love you meant nothing? The man she defended, the man she prayed with, the man she built children and legacy with, was suddenly a stranger. And yet somehow the hardest moment was still coming. Confrontation. Standing face to face with the man who destroyed everything. Tina gave Teddy one final chance. One final opportunity to be honest. Her voice shaking with fury and grief, she confronted him with the truth dragged from darkness. At first he denied it. Of course he did. The mask stayed on. Controlled. Practiced lies delivered with terrifying ease. But lies collapse when details arrive. Names, dates, timelines, evidence. Too much truth for denial to survive. And finally the wall broke. He confessed. And the silence that followed was louder than any scream. It was the sound of a life breaking. It was the sound of a woman realizing the last several years of her marriage had been a performance. That silence changed her forever. Because once truth enters the room, nothing can go back to what it was. The betrayal was complete. Trust wasn't broken. It was incinerated. Tina has spoken openly about how devastating that moment was. How the pain was so deep it became physical. How her legs gave out. How she collapsed under the weight of it. Because this kind of pain doesn't always make you scream. Sometimes it makes you forget how to breathe. Every anniversary became contaminated. Every memory questioned. Every whispered, "I love you" now standing trial. She wasn't just grieving infidelity. She was grieving reality itself. She said it was one of the darkest moments of her life. A psychological and spiritual eclipse. The woman the world knew as powerful and unstoppable disappeared. In her place was someone staring at walls, trying to understand how she had lived beside a stranger for so long. She thought about every kiss, every prayer, every promise, and wondered how much of it had been real. Pain like that turns into rage. And Tina admitted something many people were shocked to hear. She wanted destruction. She wanted Teddy to feel what she felt. She wanted him to hurt. Not polite church pain. Real pain. The kind that makes your chest cave in. She wanted to break everything he touched. Burn down the life they built. Make him sit inside the same emotional fire she had been forced to live in. And that honesty mattered. Because too often people expect betrayed women, especially women of faith, to perform graceful forgiveness immediately. But real forgiveness doesn't start there. It starts in anger, in grief, in ugly honesty. Tina wasn't pretending to be holy. She was surviving. She took that rage out on their home, on his belongings, on herself. She became someone she barely recognized. Because betrayal changes you. It pulls darkness out of places you didn't know existed. The public humiliation made it worse. To the world they were still the perfect couple. But privately everything was ash. Every glance felt heavy. Every silence screamed. Every room carried the ghost of what used to be. And then came the crossroads. The moment that would define the rest of her life. Live. Or stay. Walk away and protect herself. Or remain and fight for something that looked already dead. Everyone expected divorce. Honestly, most people would have understood it. Maybe even respected it. Because how do you rebuild after that? How do you sleep next to someone who destroyed your trust with precision? How do you love someone who murdered your peace? But Tina made a choice that shocked people. She stayed. Not because she was weak, not because she excused what happened, but because she wanted to know if something dead could live again. She wanted to know if God could breathe life into dry bones. And she was honest, staying was not romantic. It was war. Brutal. Messy. Exhausting. There were nights spent crying on the floor, screaming at the ceiling, demanding answers from a man who often didn't even understand his own darkness. There was therapy, painful conversations, relapses of anger, moments where forgiveness felt insulting. This wasn't some pretty church testimony. It was blood and survival. She admitted she wanted revenge. She admitted she wanted him to bleed emotionally. She admitted forgiveness felt impossible. That honesty made her story powerful. Because healing isn't clean. It's violent. It requires the death of the person you were before betrayal. And Teddy had his own reckoning. Stripped of image. Stripped of reputation. Stripped of excuses. He had to sit in the ruins and face what he had done. He had to look at the woman he claimed to love and accept that he was the architect of her suffering. He had to watch her fight harder for the family than he ever had. That kind of shame is its own prison. But scars remained. And Tina made something clear that many people needed to hear. Forgiveness is not forgetting. Healing is not pretending it never happened. Even after reconciliation, betrayal leaves a ghost in the room. You can survive it, but you will never be the exact same person again. That version of you is gone. And maybe that's the real story. Not the cheating. Not the scandal. But the woman who discovered strength inside devastation. Tina revealed that while Teddy was hiding his sins, she was discovering power she didn't know she had. She learned that survival is sometimes the holiest thing a person can do. That faith isn't smiling through pain. Sometimes faith is crying on the bathroom floor and choosing not to give up. She proved something powerful. A woman can be broken and still rebuild. She can be betrayed and still rise. She can lose everything she believed in and still find herself in the ashes. The Campbell story became more than celebrity gossip. It became a warning. A reminder that public perfection means nothing. That people can be applauded in daylight while destroying someone in darkness. But it also became something else. Proof of resilience. Proof that pain can transform instead of destroy. Proof that even after trust is ground into dust, the human spirit can still choose to stand. Not untouched. Not unchanged. But stronger. Smarter. More dangerous in the best possible way. Because once you survive that kind of heartbreak, fear loses its power. Tina Campbell's story isn't just about infidelity. It's about identity, faith, forgiveness, and the terrifying courage it takes to keep living after the person you trusted most becomes your deepest wound. The world thought they were the perfect love story. But maybe the real story was never perfection. Maybe it was survival. Maybe it was the moment a woman looked into the abyss and refused to let it swallow her. And maybe that's why her truth matters so much. Because somewhere, someone watching knows exactly what that betrayal feels like. They know what it means to sit across from someone they love and realize they no longer know who they are. They know what it means to rebuild from emotional rubble. And they need to hear this. Secrets always come to light. But the light does not have to destroy you. Sometimes it saves you. And now the question remains. Can a marriage truly recover after betrayal this deep? Can trust, once shattered into dust, ever become something stronger? Or are some wounds simply too deep to fully heal? Because love is easy when everything is beautiful. The real test is what happens when the truth arrives. And not everyone survives that moment.